Welcome to Legacy Conversations, a channel where we preserve military memories and history.
Hello everyone. I want to speak to you about something called Codename Lucy. Now, the George and James series of books, there's more than 50 of them. All of them deal with modern espionage, counterterrorism, that type of thing. And there's a very, very strong South African connection there, obviously. And most of them are classified as fiction, but I would call them fictionalized because there's a lot of truth in them as well. If you take the history in it and the warnings in it and the weapon systems and certain incidents, then it's actually the truth. But of course, not every single word is the truth. And when you write a book, you do have a story to tell. You do have something you want to bring over to the reader or the listener, because they're available in audio as well. Now, in Codename Lucy is a warning. It's a warning on what's happening. And I was listening the other day to this Donald J. Trump, who's a man I used to like quite a bit when he first came onto the scene. And then afterwards, you see he's just the same as everybody else. Then you start investigating his background. And funny enough, you always find the Jesuits, or you find occult. No real difference between the two, to be honest. And you sometimes wonder, why would these US presidents, these powerful people, why do they act that way? Or why do they make stupid decisions, which even we at our level can see that, oh, what are these guys doing? Why are they going that way? Only reason for that is because they're under control of someone else. But he did make an interesting statement the other day, where he said there's a beautiful ocean between Russia and the USA, which is true, of course. You've got the entire Atlantic, and Russia is not really a naval power, it's an army power, land power. And the US, funny enough, is a sea power, much more than a land power. And of course, on the other side of the US, you'll find the Pacific Ocean. Now, what's more interesting is that all the warnings I've been putting out in the books, every single one of them since I wrote it, was the BRICS connection. And I keep on saying to people, guys, have a look at where the BRICS nations are. And you will find out that they're all around choking points. It's all about controlling the sea routes. And yes, those who control the sea routes is the ones who's going to win the wars, because you need logistics. That is why your brightest minds of the army is sent on the staff courses, and they do very well. And that's also why you will not become a senior officer unless you pass the staff course and you had to do well with it. Of course, there's different ones, but you know what I'm talking about. I mean, the staff and logistics are actually very, very important. It's as important as the guy in his rattle or the guy flying his Mirage or whatever. There's a real reason also why BRICS includes South Africa. The reason for that is obviously where Cape Town is in controlling the Cape of Good Hope Sea Route, which is very, very important. That's why Britain attacked South Africa twice, to get hold of that sea route. And of course, they got hold of South Africa, and the rest is history. The book itself is about the SOSUS line. That is these underwater listening devices and things that you find in all the choke points. And then basically what happens is the different navies or intelligence units would listen in, and they would hear a ship coming over and they record it. Same with a submarine. Some say they can even hear a chopper or something flying above it, but that's not so important. That's more tactical. Fact is, they can pick up salt on the water and then it goes into a data bank, and that's how you can track ships, besides, of course, satellites, things like that, and other ships. It's known that the US Navy boasted they have a hunter killer submarine out tracking the boomers, the missile boats of the Russian Navy as well as the Chinese. Well, I've got news for them because I'm not so sure that they actually still have the capacity and the capability to do that. The Russian Navy's submarines has increased fantastically well. And that brings back the sausage line, because that means that you can passively listen and you can then, send your ships or satellites or whatever intelligence to see what's going on. Very, very important. Now, there's rumors of one such line between Cape Town and Prince Edward Island, not the entire stretch, but around about. And that's what the book is about. Is it true? Well, the Navy will deny it. The Secret Service will deny it. Everybody will deny it. But I've spoken to people who were quite adamant that they picked up via satellite SIGINT intelligence. They've picked up some signals coming from what they think can only come from a sausage line. Now, the damn problem here is these things has also developed over years. It used to be totally passive. In other words, something goes over, you record it, end of story. But now they're becoming active. They say the Chinese has a way where they put homing torpedoes, and they're talking about these quick ones, which they got from the Russians, which can go up to 200 knots, which is about 300, 400 kilometers an hour. They can put these things apparently in containers, and they can put it on the bottom of the ocean, and they link it to a sausage line. Now you can imagine the danger. Here comes a carrier group, and they come past, and the next moment these things activate on command through the satellites or however they want to do it. This thing releases torpedo, it comes up from the bottom, that American ship will be sunk or whatever they're shooting at. And within minutes, there's no defense. But there might be a defense if you read another book. It's astonishing which came out in the research. And I took all of these books together and I put it in a book, very thick book, which is called American Military Might Debunked. And that came out in 2017 already, where I started warning and I said, you're not as good as you think you are. You are lacking in technology, you're lacking in armor, you're lacking in artillery, you're lacking in everything. Even your aircraft can't fly, and those who fly are actually pathetic. They used to fight in colonial wars. They can't fight a major enemy. They just don't have it. And they're not good soldiers anyway to begin with. Not in my eyes, anyway. So it's very fascinating, because if there's an ocean between America and its enemies, whether it's on the Pacific side or Atlantic side, it means you need a navy to stop them. Yes, you can use your missiles, which have preciously little missiles, few, and definitely they don't even have hypersonic, shame. And you need a navy. You need a good navy to keep the enemy away from you, because a navy can be used in two ways. Once you start using nuclear submarines and you start using aircraft carriers, it means you want to expand your power. You want to move your power away from your shores, and you want to inflict your will upon other nations. That's the way they do it. I mean, everybody knows their tactic. It's not going to work against a major country, but what they want to do is they would arrive with their carrier groups, and then they have what they call awesome destruction or awe and terror or whatever. And then they just bomb the hell out of things, and then after that comes the infantry, who will then lose and get killed and get murdered and massacred. But in the background, they will really kill a lot of innocents as well. They're very well known for that. That's the entire NATO, by the way, pathetic. And then they create even more terrorism, create more chaos, and then at some stage they will run back to home and just leave it like that. What's the result of this? Read the J&J books, especially Oath of Evil, the war on Protestantism, and you'll find out, because of their nonsense, which was not by chance, by the way, it's not by chance. They ensured that Christianity almost does not exist anymore in the Middle East where it started. It's gone. There are more than 90 million Christians killed in the last 100 years or so. All the statistics are in the books. That's why I say to you, I'm not so sure that you can classify them as fiction. Yeah, the story might be. But things inside those books, statistics like that I'm telling you here, is definitely not. It's definitely not. And as I say in every book, go and research. Don't have to believe me. Go and research these things. You will quickly find out there's total truth in that. So every 6 minutes there will be a Christian murdered somewhere, head cut off or killed in some way because of his faith. And it is not surprising that these things are not on the mainstream media. But we discussed that as well. But that's what the book is about. And quite a few things came out which was interesting. I mean, this weather station we have at Marion Island. Two strange things about it. In the first place, it's much bigger than the people actually there. And I spoke to quite a few people on Legacy who's also actually served at Marion. And I've looked at it as well, and you see that there are less scientists than that says that within rooms. So in other words, to me, it seems like this place can be reinforced at some stage. The question is why? I don't know. Unless there's something else happening there, which of course is denied. And then also funny thing is when they do fly their helicopters there, they have, I think the standards have Oryxes are there. With all their, whatever defense systems they have on it, it's the standard ones. It's not the Puma J model, which you find in Antarctic proper, which we also spoke about on Legacy. So that's very interesting to me also that they have more space available and they use standard military equipment. And of course, you find the 7 Medical Battalion group people there all the time. Not saying there's anything sinister about that. It's just in the books. You have to think about it. Now, something else happened there. Now that is the thing in life, as well as in the world where I come from, is that you look at anything which is a bit strange, which doesn't fit in. It starts getting together. If you can only get them together, you can start seeing the pictures. You're looking for trends. And anything which is abnormal, which is strange. I mean, if you suddenly see me sitting smoking, everybody knows I don't smoke. Or you see me, I'm sitting here and I'm eating a T-bone and I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. There's no way in the world I will eat meat. It's not going to happen, ever. So, you know what I mean? Then there's something you have to wonder what's going on. Now, talk about this Marion Island, and right next to him is Prince Edward, which is, there's nobody on it. It's not habitated. But in the book, we talk a lot about the two islands, go into it in great detail. In 1979, something happened there around about that area in the southern sub-Antarctic Indian Ocean. That's what you actually call it, very long name. It was on 22 September where they say a nuclear detonation took place because the US Vela Hotel satellites picked up a flash, which they thought had to do with a nuclear explosion. Did South Africa explode a nuclear device there? Man, I don't know. I'm trying to get hold of a scientist to tell us a bit more about it. There is another book named Angel, I believe, where we deal with the South African nuclear program in great detail. There are also rumors that actually the nuclear explosions took place in one of the French islands, Polynesia or someplace, or some kind of a deal there. Can guarantee you that happened, it will never be admitted, of course. Funny thing also about the South African nuclear devices is they work differently. They don't work in the same way as Israeli ones, which they basically got from, some say the US, others say from France. It's not difficult to build a nuclear device. Let me tell you, if Iran wants one, I just need to ask the South African scientists. We can build them one quite quickly if we have the right tools to do so. It is all about how to get that thing to explode. But anyway, I don't want to go into that. That's a subject for another day. That's another book. But it's interesting, again, how these things get together, because at some stage, these South African scientists wrote a letter. They wrote an open letter, and they said, look, if we're not appointed in a suitable position, We have to go in the open market, that is what we do. We're nuclear scientists. And I don't know what happened further, but I can tell you, I think the wheels started turning in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, and that they haven't gone the way which the G5 designer, Gerald Bull, went, is assassinated in Paris, is a miracle. Because there's no way that the Jewish state will allow somebody with a nuclear weapon besides themselves. Of course, they have many nuclear weapons. It's open secret. Because they will be attacked with it. The moment they try to enforce their will on everybody, and they try that every single day, and many hundreds of civilians then die, they hate it. They are really hated people. I've seen it. I've seen it with the recent troubles we have here. I've seen the attacks against me, against my wife, against Legacy, because of a stand we took. So they will never allow that. But that is Codename Angel. I don't really want to go into that. The fact is that all of these things are working here around Prince Edward, Marion, and Cape Town. Something is happening there. And I don't really want to know. If there is a sausage line there, then it's controlled by the Chinese, not by us. BRICS country, once again, I don't want to know. But in the book, we do speculate on what's happening. But there's something more interesting in the book than this. There's always the story, and then behind it would be the actual message. And if you're smart enough, you will definitely pick up the actual message in the books. And in this one, we talk about the Chinese Navy. Because once again, as I say to you, if you want to project power, that is how you do it. You want to safeguard your trade lines, that's how you do it. You need a powerful Navy. Now, it is so that the Chinese Navy is very powerful, more powerful than the US Navy, although many people don't realize that, but they actually got more ships. And not only do they have more ships, they got new ships. And they do things in a very strange, dedicated way. What they would do is they would perfect, say, a system like CIWS, the closing weapon system, which many of you will know as a 20 millimeter Vulcan. And there's a Dutch system, I think it's a 25 millimeter goalkeeper or something. That's the Western ones. Well, they're Mickey Mouse. They're not as good as people think they are. Read my books. You will find out. If you go past the hype and you go and look at what the enemy has, or the other side rather, because I'm not sure it's the enemy, then guess what? You'll find out that the Chinese have an 11 barrel cannon, which I believe runs at a 50 millimeter caliber, not 20 millimeter, which is a First World War caliber. And guess what? It's just so much better. It's beyond better than what the Americans can even think of designing. So up to now, we had an easy ride. The Americans, they come with a Navy, they bomb everyone to hell. No one attacking their shipping lanes, and that's it. That's gonna end. The moment they take on a serious country like China or Russia or BRICS, they got to find out that these people have been preparing for them, and of course they have no defense against hypersonic missiles. It's a matter of time, because before the Houthis are going to sink or seriously damage one of the American warships, trying to open the Red Sea and places there to keep it open for Israel to trade. It's a matter of time before that's going to happen. They don't have a defense systems against it. And the defenses they have is pathetic, and it is extremely expensive as well. It's overpriced. It's typical the US versions of tech, the military industrial complex. But you can read about this in the books. One of the examples I can give you is we know for a fact that the Chinese fleet is capable of cracking an F-35 or an F-22 at 200 miles, which is a long distance. What's that? It's about 440 kilometers about. In other words, it's almost as far as Bloemfontein to Johannesburg, around about there. Can't remember. But that's how far they can track that thing. And then the US will come over stealth fighter. And it's not stealth. There's nothing stealth about it. Why? Because the Israelis in the 1990s gave the Chinese Navy a certain type of phased array radar or something, which they then perfected because we're very, very good at this. And also, by the way, there is only one country in the world who can build navies quicker than what you can sink them, and that is China. It is incomparable. It's the same with artificial intelligence. It's just incomparable. The US cannot even begin to match. And if these things are shocking to you, yeah, it should be. It really should be shocking to you. Why do you think I was warning so many times? And then, of course, no one listened. And well, now I don't care. I'm neutral. But it's fascinating how history comes together, because what I'm saying to you is the Chinese Navy is not only new, it is very powerful. And yes, you will come up and say nuclear carriers. Well, you know what? I don't think nuclear carriers is going to exist long against hypersonic missiles. But by the way, the Chinese are building carriers, and they're building them. Go and look at their cars as an interesting example. We bought a MGZ or something here in Thailand. Fantastic little car. And then we found out it's not actually a British car. It's made by a Chinese company. They bought the rights of MG, built in Thailand. And I can tell you that car is good. It's close to perfect. There's nothing wrong with that car. And it's the same with their weapons. They are long not the old, where they have MiG-21s from the Russians and they mass attacks like in Korea. Hello, you don't understand China. You don't understand that economy. You should live here where I live in the East and see how what the prices are, the quality of things. It is just amazing. And then go and look where they are right across Africa. And don't think that all of those traders are just traders, if you understand what I mean. They're not. In fact, they control Africa's minerals. And you really have to read the books. But my point in the book is, which I warn about, is that the Chinese Navy is there. It's improving all the time. It's new. It works. It's totally different from the US one, which is dilapidated. Let's take the Royal Navy. Oh, shame. They have 2 aircraft carriers, but they don't have aircraft for them. Oh, shame. Then they don't have escort ships for them. Oh, shame. Then when they leave their harbors, which isn't often, the things leak so much they have to come back to dry dock about a day late. And by the way, they don't have a speed because they are diesel powered. They are not nuclear. They don't have a speed of endurance. Oh, shame. You cannot have an unbalanced fleet. And that is exactly what the Chinese have. They would build a carrier, then they built a group around it, then they standardize all their weapon systems on it, and then they start going out like that. They are light years beyond in thinking than what the rest of the world are. And I say again, if this is shocking to you, well, man, then it is. Then you really need to read these books or listen to them. Now, we do talk in the books about something which is called the White Navy, the Great White Navy. If you haven't heard of it, just research it or read the book. Basically, what happened is Theodore Roosevelt, he was the uncle of a more famous World War II leader, the Allied one who died in 1945. What both of them had in common is both of them were 33-degree Freemasons, which is important because Freemasonry is nothing but satanic worship. Don't believe me? Read Oath of Evil or read the last 12 books when I started going into these things, because you have to look higher than just a technical level. You have to at some stage say, well, there's a God. If there's a God, there's Lucifer. And then you have to read the Bible and you have to see what happened further. And then perhaps you will be able to understand what's happening in the world right now, because what you see now is actual biblical prophecies playing out. Now, you can laugh at that. I don't care. Couldn't care less. But I can tell you, there's a lot of evidence. There's really a lot of evidence to say that's exactly what's happening. And that would explain why these so-called presidents, controlled men, all of them, why they belong to secret societies, and why they carry on the way they carry on. In fact, there's another book you can read, codename Masamole 26. And in that book, we describe to you exactly how the US was actually created as the second beast of the Bible. Don't miss it. That is fascinating. It's also in Oath of Evil. But the fact is, this Theodore Roosevelt created this very big navy because he wanted to send it across, to project the power of the US. This was around about this before 1900, around about the 1890s. And he created the navy, and it went across the world. It had a very, very good disciplinary record. They showed the flag. It was great. And then, in about 1905, the British, they were still good at that stage, still a Protestant nation, unlike what they are today. But even there, you have to read Oath of Evil and other books where you will read about the averages. That is where the British Crown signed their rights over to the Pope. Did that happen in history? Absolutely, yes, it happened. They deny that they signed anything over, but the historical facts are there. And it's not so much what the Brits are thinking, it's what the Pope is thinking. Was it signed over? Yes or no? According to the Vatican, it was signed over by Control Britain as well. And of course, they have nice scapegoats, they're all called Jews, the poor Jews. They're in control of everything, man. No, they're not. It's people, there's something beyond them. But you have to read the books to understand what I just said to you. But anyway, the Royal Navy then came out of a ship which is still to this very day changed the entire navies, and it was called Dreadnought. And the Dreadnought was the first battleship. It looked like a battleship. You had the guns on the front, the bow and the stern, and the whatever things they have in the middle. And it looked like a battleship, which we would understand a battleship would look like. Heavy guns up to them. It was just the pre-dreadnoughts were just close to rubbish. I mean, there were no design in them. They were not elegant, but they did their job. And of course, when dreadnought comes out, suddenly the entire world's navy is obsolete, including the Great White Navy, including the Royal Navy. One ship, one design, and it made them obsolete. Isn't that fascinating? Hypersonic missiles. Suddenly your defenses, which you had, is not good enough. Those things are going to come through. It's going to hit their targets. What you're going to do? So it's always a technological fight, isn't it? There's a technical fight in the background. So anyway, because Dreadnought came through, it meant that the entire world's navies have to rebuild. And the Royal Navy outbuilt them all. And Germany tried hard, the German Reich, at that stage, not the Third Reich, the German Reich. And we know what happened at Jutland in 1916. It's the last time the battleships were actually formed up to shoot each other. And the German Navy actually sank more of the British ships, but they got hunted back or chased back into their harbors, and there they stayed, and then came the mutiny and all those things. Well, you know the history. But the fact of the matter is, from this came something which we discuss in the books, which is called the Roosevelt Dreadnought Principle. And what it comes down is what I just explained before. Now you have a Navy which is obsolete, the US one, and so used that it's falling apart, and they don't have enough people to man their ships. They have to decommission them. They're wasting money with crap. They are technologically obsolete, blah, blah, blah. They're not a threat really to any great Navy. By the way, there are people who say they still have very good submarine captains. Yeah, but submarines don't win a war, does it? What wins a war is for you to protect your power. In other words, you have to invade. You have to send your infantry in at some stage to take command of whatever you want to do. That's where the real losses of life comes. So they do have good submarines and they have a lot of them, but they ain't as good as they think they are because they're noisy. They're noisy. They come close to the coast like a place like South Africa. Well, you know what? South African submarines will pick them up and probably sink them before we even know they're there. Same across the world. It is known that many of these US submarines are actually tracked by Chinese and Russian submarines who's quieter and more quiet, heavily armed. And there's something interesting about it too. We write about it, codenamed Ghost, is that the Russian submarines actually have 1/3 less people on it, which means they have more submariners to man whatever submarines they have. And so they automated it. And these submarines are not noisy anymore. They're not like the old Foxtrots and the one which we were used to with the Cold War. These are ultra modern. They're really good. They're as good as whatever the US Navy can produce and not. And that's a problem here. That is where we stand today, and that's a warning in the book and other books where we say to you that, yeah, Trump, you can think that you've got your big, beautiful ocean. Yeah, you've got that. But you've got nothing to protect your mainland from it. Does that mean that anybody wants to go and overtake America and invade it, anything like that? No, probably not. It's a very big country. To support such an operation, you will need millions and millions of men. Probably not, but don't live in a damn dream world. You know, wake up to what I've been telling you in terms of BRICS and what's happening in real life. Also, a fascinating thing, just the last thing about this Theodore Roosevelt is that it was during his presidency that something was printed and handed out in the US Congress, and it was the Jefferson Bible. Now, the Jefferson Bible, they're all occultists, you know, these people. Really read Oath of Evil and read Masamole 26, and you will find out exactly what I'm telling you. They're all part of the Freemasons, or they're not part of the Freemasons, they're Illuminati or whatever they are. Now, interesting, this Thomas Jefferson actually took a Bible, a standard Bible, and he just changed it, and he basically wrote Jesus out of it, and he wrote all the miracles out of it, and that became known as the Jefferson Bible. You'll remember that the Bible actually says no man should ever change this, there'll be a curse upon him, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm talking about. So anyway, in 1902, there was Representative John F. Lacey, was a Republican, would you believe, that they used $3,227 US to print 9,000 copies of this Bible. That is 9,000 for the Senate and 6,000 for the House. And that's actually a lot of money. You wouldn't believe. I just printed it out here from the book. It comes down to about just over $100,000. And yes, and so what they would do is, do you think this is by chance? Do you think this is by chance? No, it's not. So what they do is, whenever somebody enters Congress, they would give him a Jefferson Bible. And they had enough of these Bibles to do that up to 1952. There was an outcry, let me tell you. There were a lot of angry pastors going on about it. They saw it as blasphemy, which of course it is. But it's still interesting, isn't it? I mean, why would they do that? Why would they do that? Think about it, and then understand that the US is identified by all the great reformers as the second beast of the Bible, which is also something which comes out in a lot of my books. Some wrote it or read it, made the statement, I hate Catholics. It's nonsense. There's no such thing as hating Catholics. It's the system, which is sun worship, which I have a problem with. But that is not the subject we discuss here in Codenamed Lucy. We will talk about it in other books. I say again, read Oath of Evil. Go and make up your own mind. where we stand on that, because it's important for you to know. It's important for you to understand that not everything you see on TV and here on the radio and even YouTube can be just taken for granted. Whatever people say, think about it, go and do your own research. Even with me, when I speak about the books, investigate for yourself. That's what they mean to do. They mean to warn, and they mean to get you to think for yourself. And once you've done that, you will probably agree with the views inside the books. Anyway, uit is codename Lucy, did they then find the sausage line? Well, you'll have to read the last chapter to find that out. And also how they found out which line it was, to who it belonged, which was a very, very dangerous maneuver and very fascinating, interesting times. The book's available on Amazon. It's not in South Africa, it's on Amazon. On Kindle, it's on hardcover, softcover, as well as audio. And remember, if you support the books, you support the channel. It helps us to carry on. It helps us to spread the message, the word, and it also helps us to record. So thanks for listening here. God bless until we meet again.
Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and ring the bell to receive notifications.